All right. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of the Free American. You know, I've told you that I believe God is alive and well in the 21st century. He just works through the Constitution. And no matter, I'm always amazed every morning I get up. Not sure exactly all the time what we're going to talk about, where we're going to go. And then suddenly there's something there on the internet that's so relevant, so powerful. It's like, where'd that come from? Where'd that come from? My guest today is Keith Broaders. And Keith has the Constitution Club .ning.com site, and I've just opened that up. Keith, welcome. Can you hear me? Yeah, yeah, I just opened that up, and I've got some other things that I discovered, actually a little after I woke you up this morning, but it's about money. It's about money. Now, I opened up a Constitution Club, and staring me in the face here is he who has the gold makes the rules. And you say on your site, one of the most fundamental rights of all people is the right to enter into contracts. When a man desires a certain commodity, he has the right to offer the seller of the product something in exchange. He can offer corn to acquire beans, or he can offer the seller an IOU. In either case, the seller has the right to accept or reject that offer. This transaction does not need the corn to be backed by gold or beans to be backed by silver, and no middleman is necessary. You have just got there in print, and I'll have to copy that, steal that a little bit with a proper attribution to you and to the Constitution Club, because that you have just given the essence of Liberty Villages, right down to the beans and the corn. And of course, my plan for Liberty Villages has evolved over the last 10 years. And I know the complaints that people had about it. Well, I can't move. I can't move. My job's here. I can't move to the country. I can't move back to the farm. I can't go back to the farm because I've got to work. I got a job here in the city. What these cities have done to us is kidnapped, stolen, enticed, seduced our youth. And so our youth today don't know how to clean a chicken, gut a pig, preserve bacon, or can vegetables. They ain't got a clue. Well, you know, again, I'm not the right person to be talking to about this because I don't think I've had a job for about 45 years. I've always created my own jobs. I say I've always created my own jobs. I got to switch mics here. I don't like this mic. I'm not getting all of the recording I need here. Let me know, Richard, if you guys have any problem hearing this. I've just switched mics, and I think this mic will work. But how's that? Is that any better? Can you hear me all right? Okay. And uh, Keith, I mean, it's I became a publisher. I didn't go to school to be a publisher. I studied on the internet. I learned on. I taught myself by reading. Matter of fact, I taught myself to read by reading comic books before I ever went into school. So this this whole thing, that song keeps running through my mind. I have to look up on YouTube to try to find it. How you gonna get them back on the farm after they've seen L.A.? Now, the ninth plank on the Communist Manifesto is corporate farms. And that ain't exactly a new idea. You know, they did that early. They did that early in history and called them peons. This was the farmers working for the king and contributing to the king, weren't they?
Well, if you go back to medieval, we're getting a lot of echo right now, Clay.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. Try to change that. Hopefully that'll work.
Okay, well, in England, back in the medieval times, um, the people worked on the land. They basically, essentially, were peasants. They worked on the land, and in exchange for being able to work on the land, they had to give up a large percentage of their harvest to the lord of the manor. Well, particularly after the Civil War, there were a lot of people in America that were called sharecroppers. They basically had the right to squat on the land with the idea in mind that the crops that they grew were going to be largely given to the landowner, and I think today we essentially are sharecroppers here in the 21st century. We basically work on the government's plantation.
That's true. That's true, and I tell it a little differently. I say, they have refined the art of slavery to the point the slave don't know they're slaves anymore. I'm not a slave. I can go get in my pickup and go get a beer. Watch. It's called economic slavery.
Well, I think it was John Adams who basically said that there's two ways to enslave a man or enslave a nation. One is to conquer them with the sword militarily, and the other way is to get them financially in debt. And either way, you're a slave. But if you try to enslave a man militarily, generally he will resist, and you'll have a lot of problems. It'll be very difficult, and the slaves are not nearly as productive. But if you can basically convince the slaves that they're free, they will be very obedient, very compliant, and they will be very easy to control. And debt slavery is like I said, it's very subtle, and but it's just as diabolical. In fact, it's more diabolical actually. And the key to debt slavery is something called usury. You want to talk a little bit about how the governments and the bankers have essentially enslaved us all through the use of charging interest and usury.
One of the reasons that we don't like those Muslims much, they've got, and why they didn't like Christians that much a few hundred years ago, we all had laws against usury. Now, I've got something here that I want to share with you and the audience. B.K. Durham, who owns and controls Durham Trust, which is one of the financial instruments that is worth a few trillion bucks. It's based on the economy of Peru. But she sent me something today, and they say the gentleman that you'll listen to, that you'll hear here in a little bit, says something is coming up. Something is coming up this year that will have more relevance than the invention of coins 2,700 years ago. And I've told people that the charter of the Federal Reserve is basically up in 2013. I've also put Aaron Russo up on my Facebook site, Free America site, a number of times, telling people that Nicholas Rockefeller of the Rockefeller family, who predicted 9/11, who predicted our invasion of Afghanistan, who predicted, just about everything, is saying that he wants everybody chipped, the whole mark of the beast thing, from right from the Bible, 2,000 years. For 2,000 years or more, we've been asking ourselves, what do you mean, mark of the beast? You won't be able to buy or sell without it, but we shouldn't take it. What the hell could they be talking about? And of course, they've got commercials for it now. It's called the RFID chip. George used to forget his medication, but now we got this little chip. They got commercials for it. It's called HealthLink. HealthLink, and it tells your doctor what's wrong with you, what medication you need, when you need to take it, and how much you got in your bank account. Aaron Russo predicted this. An old friend of mine, who of course died from fast-acting cancer right after he told us that. So much for the good Jews out there. If you go against the banking system, they're going to warn you. Now, what this gentleman says is happening, and again, this has been floating all around the internet. They've been predicting it, and it's the death of cash. I don't know what is going on, Richard. I'm getting a tremendous feedback here. I'm not sure what that is.
That's because the way you guys set it up there.
Okay, I don't have it now, so it's working, and my recording here is working, and the voice is working okay, and I can hear Keith on my the recording I'm doing here. So we'll try to get along with it. If it gets bad, let me know. And this death of cash. This is supposed to be happening now. Now, the man that's telling us about this, I put links up on the website, so you can go listen to it on your own. This is going right along with the Fed system, as the economist Harley Hahn writes. The Fed really doesn't have the money. The Fed just makes it up. And what the Fed's talking about is killing the cash now. Have you heard anything about that, Keith?
No, I'm not very much aware of what you're talking about right now. But I do think that the whole idea of currency is something that is really important for us to consider, because frankly, when you were talking about the idea that we are slaves, we can be slaves inside of a cage, so to speak. But frankly, when you're in debt, you are also a slave, and so you cannot have liberty and be in debt. Those two things do not go together, and consequently, whoever you are in debt to, whoever is the creditor in this relationship, is the master, and the slave is obviously the servant. And I believe, frankly, that one of the important topics that I think goes back to what we talked earlier about, the idea that if I have beans and you have corn and we want to make a trade, we don't need a middleman or a banker to basically get involved in the equation. And the whole idea that gold and silver are needed to back currencies basically just creates an excuse for a government and bankers to go into bed with one another so that they can enslave the people. Because if you don't, if we're bartering beans and corn, like I said, we don't need a middleman. But if, for example, if the beans were backed by gold, and if I didn't have the money, I'd have to borrow the gold from the government or the bankers in order to be able to participate in that particular transaction. So
what you're
the whole
saying
idea
is,
that gold and silver are necessary.
what you're saying is, don't borrow the money, don't borrow the gold from the bankers. Make a deal with the beans for the beans. You need the beans, you can eat the beans. How about if I fix your truck? I'm good with tools. I know how to change the spark plugs. I know how to change the oil. How about if I fix your truck and pay you in beans?
Well, I think the other thing is the way I see it is that, you know, the problem with the barter system is that if I've got beans and you've got corn, and I want your beans but you don't want my corn, we've got to get other people involved in this situation in order to be able to make a transaction. And so consequently, if instead of trading beans for corn, if you gave me an IOU, and let's say, for example, you loaned me $20, and then you have in your possession an IOU with my name on it. Well, you can now take that IOU and trade it with the person who has peaches or grapes or whatever, and if that person will accept that IOU, then basically our system can go forward without anyone having to, without being limited to bartering only with a person on a one-on-one basis.
Well, they have done that, and this is part of the plan that I'm putting together. And it's called, that's part of the Liberty Villages concept. And we've already got that system. It's already working. It's working in Ithaca, New York. It's working in Colorado. It's called Mountain Hours, or Mountain Money, Mile High Money. It is in Ithaca. It's called Ithaca Hours. And some folks out in Colorado have printed up really pretty money, a lot prettier than those Federal Reserve notes, and they're calling them hours. So if your time is worth $20 an hour, and you work on my car, I pay you in hours. You can use that to buy the beans or the corn or the biodiesel that you made in your backyard. We don't need the plants. We don't need the nuclear power plants. I said that Obama's idea of greening America is buying the top of that mountain over there and turning that into, selling that to a Chinese company who brings over their windmills and puts it up on the windmills, and then they run the power it generates down to the power plant. Power plant sells it to you. So you got another middleman between you and the power. Why don't we just cut it out altogether? Why don't we turn our roofs of our homes into power plants? Why don't we put up the windows? Why don't we why don't we bring the country to the city? Oh, you can't do that. Oh, that's against zoning. Zoning will allow, the homeowners association will allow, all the little factions of control set up by your government don't want you to be independent, don't want you to be free, don't want you to be self-sufficient. And that's a global plan for global enslavement. And if we're going to fight that, I think we got to start right there in our front yard, right there on our front steps, right there in our backyard. If we're going to oppose this kind of slavery, economic slavery system, the Liberty Village concept is the way to do it. What do you think?
I think you're exactly right. No, I think you're absolutely correct.
Right.
One of the quotes from Thomas Jefferson also was that when the people started to leave the farms and started to congregate in the cities, that we would become just as corrupt and as Europe. And basically, Thomas Jefferson's ideal was for an agrarian America where virtually most everyone would be basically living on relatively small farms where they would be producing the types of things that they need, and that anything that they had in the form of a surplus could be used to barter and exchange with others. And so Alexander Hamilton, on the other hand, he wanted basically to recreate London in America by having all of the people coming together. And this is what this Agenda 21 and this sustainable development and everything, they're trying to control people. And it's a lot easier to control people if you're able to confine them to a relatively small area so that you can basically supervise them and dictate to them.
Thomas Jefferson also warned that if we were allowed a central bank a private bank to issue our money, the banks and the corporations that spring up around them will leave your children homeless in the land that we conquered. Looks like what's happening now to me.
That is also very true.
Now, I came up with a plan for Liberty Villages 10 years ago. It's been adapted because we do need to, and it's already being done. It's already being done. We got a family in Pasadena, in Southern California, in the LA area, that's producing 6,000 pounds of food out of their backyard. I think it's an incredible feat, but it shows it could be done on your whole block. It could be done in your whole town, your whole small town economy could be transformed, couldn't it? It negates the corporate farm image of Archer Daniels Midland, of Monsanto, and Monsanto's even more evil than that. They're selling you the poisons, and then they're putting the poisons in the food itself. All part of the plan to lower the population so they won't have so many of us useless eaters around. Now, this plan's been in the works for quite some time. It's evolving and growing. And this just came in today. This is from Jeff Yasteen. This is an Emmy Award nominated financial reporter who disappeared. He disappeared 23 months ago, and he just resurfaced to say why I went underground. In this presentation, which you can get up on Facebook, you can get up on Free American, you can get up in the chat room, he reemerges to reveal the biggest investment story of his career. Thank you. Where was it? So I want to share that with you. I'll stop it from time to time so we can comment on it.
I'm Jeff Yasteen, and today I'm reporting from Washington, D.C. on what could become the biggest financial story in history. A few weeks from now, a historic event will transform our money supply. It will bring sweeping changes to our entire lifestyle, indeed our entire financial civilization. As Yale economist Robert Shiller said, the economic revolution may be as profound as that wrought by our ancient ancestors' invention of coins. Over the next few minutes, you'll discover how a major disruption to our monetary system will directly impact nearly everything, from the politicians we elect, to the coffee we drink, to how much we can buy, to where we shop. It'll even impact our families, our houses of worship, our lifestyles, and our retirement. I believe that this event, more than any stock market story, could prove the defining moment of our financial lives, bigger than the tech boom and bust, the bull market that followed, or the crisis of 2008. We've unearthed shocking intelligence buried deep inside the Federal Reserve in Washington, D.C., and it indicates exactly how this event will create an economic shockwave worth $663.3 trillion this year alone. In pure dollar terms, that eclipses the world market for stocks, $54 trillion, and oil, $3.2 trillion, and gold, $2.4 trillion, combined 10 times over. It will dwarf the whole American economy, $16 trillion, and even the world's economy, which is $69.9 trillion, combined. The effects of this event will transform economic theory, the evening news, and CNBC. You will experience this event up close and personal. You'll see direct evidence whenever you go to the grocery store, or the gas station, or your favorite restaurant. When you pay a bill, move money around between accounts, or add to your 401k every time you buy and sell an investment. According to Fortune's Miguel Helft, what's in play? Millions of merchants, billions of transactions, and trillions of dollars in commerce. The stakes could not be higher for our investments and our families. And that's why I've created this special presentation. As I said earlier, my name is Jeff Yasteen. You may recognize me as the director of several nationally televised investigations into banking scandals, stock fraud, and corrupt politicians. Or perhaps you saw State of Repair, my expose on the federal government's failure to maintain our crumbling infrastructure. That one won me an Emmy Award nomination alongside 60 Minutes and Anderson Cooper. Today, I serve as Director of Research and Special Presentations here at the nation's leading investment think tank. Each day, more than 200,000 hedge funds, institutions, and individuals rely on our timely information. We've guided them through every major financial event of the past 23 years. The dot-com bust and the recovery, the demise of Merrill Lynch and the old Wall Street order, the rise of China, the crisis of 2008, and the surprise boom of 2009. I feel it's important to tell you that we went public with every major call, in some cases just days beforehand. But we've never seen an event quite like this one powerful enough to transform not just the markets, but also human civilization. On July 30th, 2013, the Federal Reserve will quietly launch an audacious new program. Combined with other forces, it will radically disrupt the supply of physical money, cash, and coins in America. Over the next few minutes, you'll discover all the details I'll present as evidence. You'll see exactly how this event will change our world over the next 12 to 18 months and beyond. In the early stages, we will see fresh waves of volatility rocking the markets. We'll see enormous boom and bust cycles. I believe we could experience civil unrest, including protests outside banks and possibly arrests on a grand scale. But this is not some doomsday scenario, not really. The event you're about to discover will bring crisis, but also historic opportunity.
Well,
it will transform almost every industry, economy, and society. It could even spawn new branches of human endeavor that will lead us out of the current malaise. I've created this presentation to ensure that you and your family come out on the winning side.
And I created Liberty Villages so you and your family can come out on the winning side. I don't believe this is just a coincidence. I believe Jeff Yasteen, this information, he spent a lot of years creating this, a lot of time creating this, and what he's talking about is $663 trillion currency shock that will transform our money supply and possibly make some investors very rich. And how will it affect you? How will it affect you and your family? if you follow my suggestions here, and this isn't a way for me to make money, this isn't a way for me to get rich, this is a way to transform a society. You know, Bear from the chat room here, we had a great long conversation the other day, and I said, how, the problem I think we have is how do you fight evil without becoming evil? And she said, don't fight. Don't fight. They're trying to egg you into this battle. They're trying to set us against the cops, cops against us. They're trying to, and they bought and paid for our politicians. Just allow them that. They've done that. Now, where do we go from here? Well, that's the plan for Liberty Villages. That is the plan for Liberty Villages. It's not Agenda 21. We have the right to grow our own food. We have the right to have whatever we want in our backyards, whether it's chickens or hogs or goats. We can't let them tell us what to do. And if we unite, and I'm not talking about joining the company, I'm not talking about joining the commune here, I'm talking about setting up a system exactly as our founding fathers, as Thomas Jefferson envisioned it. And I ain't gonna fight them no more. I don't care if we do this in our neighborhood. If we put out flyers, and I'll make the flyers for you. If we make the flyers and take it to one of our neighbors and say, how'd you like to be in on this? No big thing here. If you don't, no penalty. You just don't get any of the food. If you get in there on the start, you don't even have to get in the backyard and plant the food. Your neighbor will do that for you. Your neighbor likes the garden. If you've got something to offer your community, we will have a co-op that'll help you. We'll have a co-op that'll save you money. We'll have all of that. I mean,
Clyde, let me mention something here that I think is really...
Go right ahead.
Let me mention something here that I think is really important, and that is, do you have any idea how many acres are in the United States of America?
No, I just know way too much of it's owned by the federal government, but go ahead.
It's 2.5 billion acres, okay? And of the 2.5 billion acres, the federal government
just
owns 700 million acres. They own about 1/3 of all the land is owned by the federal government. Now, if you go east of Colorado, the states have an average of federal land of about 1 to 3%. If you go west of Colorado, the 13 western states are collectively owned by the federal government to about 70% of the land. California has 100 million acres. Of the acreage in California, 45 million acres are owned by the federal government. One of the plans that I have is that this land that the federal government is squatting on is not lawfully theirs. In the Northwest Ordinance, it was stated that when any new state entered, or any new territory became a state, that the land in that territory would be turned over to that state. And that procedure was followed up until about the time of the Civil War. The first 37 states were able to receive virtually all of their land. It was ceded to them by the federal government. The final 13 states, though, they changed the rules. It seems to me that the states are not being treated equally under the law. The 14th Amendment basically indicates the fact that everyone is supposed to be treated equal under the law. Well, if people in California have 44 million acres of federal land that cannot be taxed to help support education and things of that sort, Texas, I think, is 1.3% federally owned. California and Texas are not being treated equally at all. California should rise up and demand through the process of eminent domain, that this land be transferred back to the state of California. This movement is very strong right now in Utah. There's an organization there that is suing the federal government for the return of their lands. I think it's about 72% or so of Utah is owned by the federal government. And if we could get this land back, your Liberty villages could be established essentially with essentially like a homestead. The government would the people would be able to acquire the land simply by taking it over and making it productive.
People are actually doing that. People are actually doing that. There are some people that are going out to vacant lots and firing seed balls into the lot. It ain't weeds. They're planting crops and starting to make this happen all over the country. We can feed ourselves. We can do this. It ain't hard. And thanks, Observer. And I've done this, and this is why I came up with the plan for Liberty Villages 10 years ago. Some woman called me and said, well, Clay, we're already doing that. We're already doing that right here in northern Florida. You know, the farmers are bringing their food into the farmers market. I used to go into Weatherford, Texas with my grandmother and go to the farmers market, buy all my food from the farmers, bought my watermelons from the farmers. And she said, we're doing that right here in northern Florida here. We're doing that right now. And a lot of us are putting up the solar and putting up this, so we're already doing that. And I'm thinking that all the information's there. You know, Observer says he wants to can and store and take care of himself. Well, that's great. That's great. But he said, educate myself in canning and other old-time trades. Well, that's fine. And as soon as you learn how to do that, you need to teach your neighbor. That's what the co-op is about. That's what it's working together. It's not one person profiting off of everything. It's all of us working together to be productive. You know, and whether it's growing your own food or building solar panels in your garage. And I've done story after story again on here about the government going after organic farmers. If you want to sell your cow's milk to somebody that wants it in New York, the government's going in to raid your farm. That's why we have to organize, and that's how we have to be together. And that's what when I started the militias 20 years ago, that was what it was about. Because Waco was one of the first government attacks on a self-sufficient family farm that dared to defend themselves and were capable of defending themselves. So they murdered them all. That should have been a clue to you, certainly was to me. And how do we stop that from happening? How do we stop that from happening again? I mean, that's what people will tell me. Well, you can't start a farm. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You know, the whole thing about Waco, I thought that there was something in our country's history that basically said that people that are suspected of doing something illegal are entitled to a trial by jury. I don't think David Koresh or all of the children that were slaughtered and murdered by the government had any due process. You?
No, sir. They did not. And I swore that I would never sit back and watch something like that happen again without trying to do something. But of course I had to, so did you. When 9/11 happened, you know, I didn't see anybody rushing in to steal everything that was in the buildings. I saw Americans helping Americans. You know, we didn't need 400,000 well-armed, well-trained, organized, disciplined troops to control the American people. We were all helping. The firemen were helping. The police were helping. And of course, here's your naysayers. Well, duh. You able to do anything as organic? They'll slam you with orders and paperwork. Take that paperwork and stick it up where the sun don't shine. If you don't stand up for your independence, where is there a law against growing your own food on your own property? You can't show me one. And if they want to haul anybody away, I hope it's MJ Tom first. I hope they just pick your ass up, put you in a because you're too dumb to be working with the rest of us. Frankly, how about that? If we don't work together, we will all hang alone. And all of these trolls out there, they try to find something wrong, some reason why we can't be self-sufficient, why we can't do this, why we can't do that. I'm so sick of those negative people. I'd like to hook them to the Harley, feet first, and drag them for a few miles. But that's oops, wait a minute. I'm sorry. I'm supposed to be the kinder, gentler Clay these days. Hold on. Hold on. Let's go back here. We got 15 more minutes in this area. I want you, what they've got here, what this guy, Jeff Yasteen, got, is something called a 5-step plan. This is what he's developed. This is a Wall Street type. He says he developed this for his high net worth people. Let's go back and listen to this just a little bit more. Be right back with Keith Brothers.
Along the way, you'll discover the simple 5-step plan we developed for our high net worth readers. And it could mean the difference between losing almost all and doubling your wealth as events unfold. You won't pay a dime for this research either. I'm on a mission to provide it to you for free, and here's why. Growing up in a small town in Florida, I learned the importance of financial stability at an early age. I lost my father when I was 12, and life in our little Rambler was never quite the same. I watched my mother get us through the storm. She did it with hard work and careful savings. She lifted herself up by the bootstraps and took care of business, and she would not accept the status of victim. Well, I carried that lesson with me, and I entered the world of adult life and financial research, and there I quickly discovered that the financial system chews up people, hardworking people like my parents every day, and I decided right then and there that I would make it my life's mission to level the playing field for investors. How? Well, by providing them with proprietary information that would allow them to not just survive, but thrive in all markets. My research has led from the central banks of Europe, Latin America, and Asia to the stock markets of Mumbai. Now, the trail has doubled back on itself, and it ends here in Washington, D.C., site of the Federal Reserve Bank. Very soon, this will serve as ground zero for an event I'm calling the death of cash in America. It will revolutionize our monetary system and our daily lives in remarkable ways. After more than 200 years as the backbone of our economy, the trusted greenback dollar will lose its status around the world, but also right here in America. You won't hear about this ahead of time from CNBC or any other mainstream source. But if you have even $1 in your wallet or bank account, you need to know what's coming. It will be the most important story about money that we've seen in thousands of years. And here's what I mean. Since the dawn of mankind, more than 20,000 years ago, money has consisted of physical stuff. Stuff you can hold in your hand, stuff that you can count and store and smell. The first coins sprang into being along the shores of the Mediterranean around 786 BC. The Lydian stater coin was made of electrum, a natural mixture of gold and silver. Lydians could suddenly exchange this new universal currency for anything they wanted, and the effects were profound. Lydia's economy exploded. The new money accelerated this exchange of goods, services, and knowledge across the region. Coins then spread to ancient Greece by about 600 BC. And from Greece flowed the rise of Western civilization itself. But what does all this have to do with the event we're about to experience? For the first time since the invention of coins, our money supply will undergo a complete transformation. It will start here in America, bringing waves of disruption to our economy and our culture, but it will spread worldwide and quickly in 2013. The time to prepare is now, and here's why. Just days from now, our economy will begin a radical shift away from cash and toward an all-electronic money supply. The transition to a cashless economy has been a long time coming, and the moment has finally arrived. This is not a metaphor. I'm talking about the literal, physical death of the dollar. The American Institute for Economic Research reports that 93 out of every $100 already exist electronically and only electronically. That means 93% of our money supply has quietly transitioned out of cash and into ones and zeros on computers around the world. Money's transition from the physical to the digital world has entered a rapid state of acceleration. According to the Wall Street Journal, our supply of physical cash climbed 18% from 2009 to 2011. During that same period, the supply of digital dollars soared 2,915%, from $33 billion to nearly $1 trillion. That means for every one physical dollar the government creates, it creates 162 electronic dollars. Currency and coin as we know it is going to be disappearing, confirms Dr. Richard Rahn, Senior Fellow at the Conservative Discovery Institute. As Renew America's Wes Vernon writes in Newsmax, the issue is not whether a cashless society is coming, but how it will be administered and toward what ends. But here's the strange thing. While investors who fail to prepare could lose practically all, investors who know what's coming could get very rich. For clues about what to expect, consider what happened not long ago in Europe's most populous nation. In the summer of 1988, 3 of Germany's most powerful bankers gathered for a secret meeting in Hanover. They included former German Foreign Minister Hans-Dietrich Genscher, along with the French Finance Minister and the President of the European Commission. Their purpose was simple and revolutionary. They wanted to speed up commerce between European countries by introducing a new universal currency. In order to accomplish this, these central planners first had to eliminate the old cash-based systems. Finally, at midnight on January 1st, 1999, the 3 men got their way. At that moment, the newly created euro currency launched continent-wide. It spelled the end of some of the world's oldest cash-based monetary systems. But here's what most people don't realize. When they launched the euro, not a single bill or coin hit the economy. The euro launched as the first all-electronic currency. Governments issued a stern warning to all citizens. Turn in your cash by the deadline or else. In Germany, in Belgium, in France, in Holland, and Spain, panic erupted as citizens rushed to spend their cash on everything from bubble gum to houses before it expired. Now, the biggest shock came when the German mark, the symbol of Europe's economic strength, expired. The safest investment in Germany went to zero permanently at midnight on February 28, 2002. The death of cash devastated countless Europeans across the land. Europe's money supply remains in a suspended crisis thanks to this grand exercise in central planning. Starting days from now, we'll experience our own version of this disruptive event. We expect the big announcement to come from the Federal Reserve on or before July 30th, 2013.
Now, keep in mind, you're not hearing this on MSNBC, NBC, or CNN, are you? You're hearing this on Revolution Radio, which stresses why you should be donating, why you should be promoting people like me, people and people like Nighthawk that are putting this information out for you. We're not being controlled. We ain't got an auction this fight. We're trying to do this to help the American people, to help our families, to protect our families. And you've just heard probably some of the biggest news, and probably more than you've gotten from mainstream, about the whole setup of the euro, more digital cash. You'll soon, and he'll get into this in a little bit later, you'll soon go up to Walmart and take the digital money from your cell phone and sweep it over the scanners and pay for your groceries at Walmart. Keith Browder from the Constitution Club. And I believe what you're putting together, I want to talk more about this on the second hour here. We'll be coming up for a break in about 5 minutes. But I think the Liberty Village concept and the Constitution Club that you're working on is a way of uniting people. You're educating people about what the Constitution is supposed to be. You are, and we're trying to give some solutions here. Grow your own food, and we've even got if you just got this fondness for paper money, we've even got that for you. It's called mountain hours or mountain money or mile high currency, whatever you want to call it. But it's based upon the plan that came out well over 10 years ago, well before Y2K, called Ithaca Hours. Are you familiar with that, Keith?
1991. Yes, 1991. As a matter of fact, the guy who started the program, his name is Paul Glover. He's going to be on my Blog Talk Radio show this evening, as a matter of fact, and he's going to be talking about organic money, about a debt-free, usury-free currency that enables people to engage in commerce without using Federal Reserve notes. This program started, like I said, in Ithaca in 1991. I think he's indicated that they've got well over 500 merchants in Ithaca that are accepting the currency in lieu of cash. They have had a tremendous amount of success, and it's just a really a wonderful system. It brings the community together. Frankly, it's not designed. You're not going to get Walmart, or you're not going to get Office Depot or Lowe's to participate in something like this, because these are giant corporate big boxes. They're not going to do it. But the local home-owned businesses, they're going to be able to accept this form of barter script. And what it does, it keeps the money in the local community. The money is not sent to the Walmart order so that they can use the money to hire offshore laborers in China to make the products. It keeps employment local. It helps
stay with me.
Like I said,
We got to take a break.
The growth of the economy and employment.
Hang on, we got to take a break. We'll be right back. Keith Brouders will stay with me, and we'll finish educating you. Be right back.
dictatorship. Oh, be quiet. Why are you guys so anti-dictators? Imagine if America was a dictatorship. You could let 1% of the people have all the nation's wealth. You could help your rich friends get richer by cutting their taxes and bailing them out when they gamble and lose. You could ignore the needs of the poor for healthcare and education. Your media would appear free, but would secretly be controlled by one person and his family. You could wiretap phones. You could torture foreign prisoners. You could have rigged elections. You could lie about why you go to war. You could fill your prisons with one particular racial group, and no one would complain. You could use the media to scare the people into supporting policies that are against their interests.
Tune in Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern Time for Liberation Nation with Deacon Don, where America comes to hear the truth.
I know this is hard for you Americans to imagine, but please try.
But not a word.